Come on.
They're right there!
Let's go. Move, 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 move.
This episode of Choices Not Chances podcast is sponsored by Louisiana Gun Shop, located on Highway 90 West in Broussard, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette. For more information, stay tuned at the end of this episode. This is Choices Not Chances podcast with Ryan and Matt. I'm your co-host, Matthew Charette. Sitting next to me is Ryan Rogers. Ryan.
All right, guys, thanks for coming back. I hope that, just as always, if you take anything away from the show to the positive, or you have anything that somebody needs to hear, share it out to them. Don't be selfish with the information. Today, my guest on the screen here is Shawn Waterman. He's a Marine, a former police officer, Michigan tobacco enforcement, as a field agent, Marine Scout sniper. He's had a service and career and continues to try to lift up and bring light to the world through not only his actions in his own job, but also through social media and through his love for fitness. So, Shawn, thanks for coming out. I know this was kind of impromptu, late notice. Let's just put it together, but we've been looking forward to this, looking forward to talking to you for some time now. So thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah, no problem, Ryan. I appreciate you reaching out and being able to get on here so quickly.
Absolutely. So just a little backstory with Shawn, and then we're going to go even more further back than that. But we continually, as we talked offline, we noticed that we're just missing each other at different units that we were in, which is common, especially as you stay tight to the community. As the community gets older, you're like, dude, I was right behind you everywhere. You know what I mean? So we were just talking about that, which is pretty interesting, pretty cool. But I like to start it off and take it back to the beginning and just find out, who is Shawn Waterman? Where'd you come from? Siblings, parents in the house, religion in the house, things of that nature, and then we'll spawn conversation off that.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it. Man, my, kind of growing up was a little bit all over the place for me, the country. My father always moving, but primarily I grew up in Seattle, Washington. I was a Northwestern boy, very involved in sports. I got one brother, not so much the sports or the athlete guy. He took way smarter guy than me. He's a pilot. So, I always give him some crap for that. Always involved in sports. Later down the road, went to college at Clarion University, played some college basketball there. And, from there, I guess I took an untraditional route into military service to where, I tried college out for a bit and I knew I was always going to go into the Marine Corps. I just didn't know when. So I figured, a year and a half go by, second year, boom, I'm in the Marine Corps just like that. But if you kind of fast forward, I'll make this pretty quick. I'm not going to draw it out at all. Go through my Marine Corps service, which we can get back to. After that, I had this huge void. I didn't know really what to do, where to go. Went to college at Embry-Riddle University. And from there,
what were you studying?
I was studying business administration at the time because I had no clue. And I said, you know what, this is just a broad spectrum of a degree. It can cover everything. Yep. Any direction I really wanted to go. And from there, I really kind of to plug that void in who I was and what I wanted to do, and carry on service and protection of other people, and went to law enforcement academy down there. And then kind of the rest stems up here for me being in Michigan and being a tobacco enforcement agent for the state.
Roger that. And I want to touch into a little bit of all of that, but going back a little bit, so you said you have one sibling, and that's a brother, you said, and he's older or younger?
He is younger.
Younger, so you're first in the birthright.
That's right, absolutely.
Gotcha. And you said heavy into sports growing up. What sports were you heavy into?
So I was into football, baseball, basketball, hockey. I mean, if you had a puck or a ball, man, I was playing it. I love
team sports, mainly team sports.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My dad had a sports career. He was very, he was kind of adamant in me developing as a kid some of those leadership characteristics as being in sports. And so I was constantly busy, whether it was in high school or up till college. That's also something that I think just lost today. It's just leadership on kids, but that's a different topic.
Yeah. And I mean, It's different, but it's the same. I mean, now our jobs as parents are to instill those virtues into our own children. And if we're not doing that, then like what you said, then it's going to change. The virtues are going to change and the nation's going to change. But I'm very much into that myself. And in my research and my studies and my new book, it's going to come out next year on leadership. I have a family portion where I talk about the importance of team building sports and team building in general. Because like your siblings are probably the very first people you learn to lead and learn to follow. But outside of that, for me, and I think generally most people, team sports is the youngest events that you're going to be doing outside of school, which you don't get too much leadership in school, but there's a lot of following, not too much leadership, right? Opportunity. But once you start getting on the field, and you're in a team sport, and I love that. I actually coach now. I coach all my kids. It's like 5 nights a week at the ball field, trying to hop diamond to diamond from softball to baseball. Tonight it's baseball. Last night was softball. But I always bring the kids in, and we do everything together. I make them count, just like repetitive counts in the Marine Corps. 1, 1, 2, 2. And at first it like took them some time, and I'm like, hey, why do you think we do this? And I try to explain it to them. Now they're 8 years old, little girls, they're interested in other things, but from a very early, age, and especially on my teams, I say, hey, we do everything together. We count together, we stretch together, we warm up together, we practice together, we win together, we lose together. That is a team. And I make sure that's imperative on them because my coaches did that to me, and it is imperative. And then I explain to the parents in my expectation meeting that, hey, coachable kids will become employable adults.
100%.
Uncoachable kids have a harder transition to having a boss like that, and they're going to have a boss, right? So that's great. I love the fact that you're in sports. It's like an appreciation I have for my parents because now I know how hard it is, but I know how necessary it is, right? So got to keep passing that down. But okay, so going on from there, you went to college, right? So you get through high school, you go to college. Was there an early memory that you can come up with, or the earliest time when you started thinking that maybe you want to go join the Marine Corps, join a service branch, like prior to college?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember the day actually in high school I wanted to do it. I was sitting in I think it was a regional final game in basketball, get my ankles all taped up. And one of my coaches comes over to me and he looks at me and he says, because I was a very regimented person. I'd be at practice at this time. I would even self-discipline myself sometimes if I was late, very, very disciplined team. And, he looked at me and he said, what do you want to do when you grow up? Like out of nowhere. His coach, he just asked me during a regional final game. I think it was to calm my nerves or something because we were all pretty nervous. Right. We haven't been on this stage before. Yeah. And I said, that's a really good question. He goes, you almost look like you belong in the Army. Now because it's the Army, I'm like, we're a little bit more hardcore than that, coach. Yeah. And I started to think about it, and I actually knew just from there was an aptitude test year prior to that said I was supposed to actually be in law enforcement. Those weird tests you take. Yeah.
Like personality tests.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I hate to say it, it kind of pegged me.
Dude, they always do. They got it.
I was. Yeah, they nailed exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And when I got to college, I just felt kind of that overwhelming sense of wanting to help other people, but not knowing how to. And I think we all know where we are at 9/11, when 9/11 happened. And I think kind of that day going forward, and I know I was pretty small at that point, I always wanted to do something great for people and protect them. Because that had a huge impact on me and my family, especially watching it from the West Coast. That's kind of where it all really stemmed from. And then it just grew more and more and more from there. And now I'm where I'm at. And I even continue now to even put myself in other roles. I'm involved in other companies like Battle Tested Security. So I don't know why I always have to be putting myself in a position to almost be harmed or something, but I feel like it's my life's work is service to other people.
And that's why I was drawn to have you on. I agree with it. We talked about it off the line, but it's worth mentioning that a lot of guys get stuck when they get out. They get out, and even if they don't, they might not even have gotten damaged, and they get out and they get stuck, and they get this anxiety or this hole, and they don't even know what it is. And it took me a long time to realize, and I try to tell people now so that it's not too late when they know, but it's like it derives from your service to other people through an organization. You've been part of this organization that was doing monumental good for the globe, and whether you ever took the minute to sit down and recognize that or not is irrelevant. That's in you, and not to mention that's your archetype, right? Yeah. You're a protector. That's what you do. And then when you get out and you have nothing to protect, and you have no allies and squads or platoons, to come into, and you're missing the guys, you realize that like a lot of that was just your service to other people can fill that void. And for me, that's what it became. I had to educate myself, but post-education, it became service. Get on here, tell the stories, write the books, do what you got to do to pass on this knowledge to lift people up. Get on the social medias and go find your people where they're at and say, hey, listen, we can do this together. This is a doable thing. And so I love that. That's what you're doing, because that's what we need more of. I try to bring guys like you on to show people these are guys that I know have been through it, have been through the rigors of war. Maybe arguably more than anybody else that I know. And so if that's real, and they're still finding a way, and despite the war and the experiences that they had to be successful, that's what I want to show people. Because if you never see somebody that looks like you succeed, maybe it is hard to keep that hope burning, right? So
absolutely. And I'm glad that there's platforms like your platform out there actually giving, real life experience, real people to see, hey, this is what we went through. There aren't a lot of platforms nowadays. And I think people think it's just geared towards vets. I think people can take a lot from this. Even if you're non-veteran. Yeah, it's veteran driven, but I see this actually, your platform is great for what you're doing. I love it.
I appreciate that. And I mean, that does me good. And recently I've had more and more civilians reaching out or I've talked to multiple life coaches that have no military service whatsoever, that are being moved by some of the stories of the warriors on the podcast, and being moved by, I was able to get my interpreter Cameron out of Kabul. I don't know how much I helped, but I was assisting along the way, and he's out and safe now, and they were moved by that. And so I talked to some of them, I interviewed with them, and it's like, that's exactly what I want. Because in the mission statement for my company, it's to bridge the military and civilian divide. Because if we can't bridge that, Congress controls the military. Congress is overly civilian right now. And if we can't bridge that divide to let these junior freshman congressmen and women understand that war is a real thing, you are insulated from it, but it is a real thing that we have to fully fund, at all times, even when it's not comfortable, even when we need to pinch pennies. That's not where you steal it from. These are lives. This is technology. This is, ultimately the fate of the republic. This isn't where you borrow from. And,
right.
And if we,
100%. Yeah.
If we can bridge that divide, then maybe we can move that closer to an even keel. And that's like the whole point. Outside of helping guys, I want to help, but I want to help on a macro and a micro level. I want to help the individual all the way up to the organizational level. So, love that. So tell me, well, let's go back. Let's talk about your career a little bit. As far as not everybody gets to be a scout sniper. I mean, that's a privilege. That's a privilege, in my opinion, to even be able to have that title. So, it's crazy how I even ended up in a scout sniper platoon, to tell you the truth. And I hate to say everybody can do it, but it really is just a mindset. More than anything, some people have physical abilities who are gifted physically to run friggin' amazing PFTs and CFTs and do all this crazy stuff, but mentally they're not gifted that. They can't hack it up here. The way I actually got into it, it's really funny how I got into it. They were holding an NDOC and they said, hey, anybody want to come out for it? Come out to it. And this is when you're in 3-2?
This is when I was in 3-2 Lima Company. I was a machine gunner at the time. And we were actually going out to a field op. We were doing a range. I was hitting I forget where I was sitting. I think one of the medic trucks or something. I was reading Pat Tillman's book, Where Men Win Glory. Actually, when that got passed down to me, and I was reading this, and I was reading about, man, this dude just like he passed up an opportunity with $1 million for the frickin' Seattle Seahawks.
Yep.
And he turns around and he goes and he's a frickin' Ranger. And I was like,
it's meant to be.
It's meant to be, man. It spoke to me, and I was like, that's it. I was Sergeant, get me in the NDOC. Get me in the NDOC. So a week later, I was in the NDOC, and the rest was kind of history. So
yeah. Now, did you end up going school trained?
No, I didn't go school trained.
Okay.
I didn't have that opportunity. What happened was I was going to come back to school trained, and then I decided, long story short here, the ex-wife at the time said, you got a family to think about. You're running around playing hero over here or whatever. We had it out a little bit. I was like, shit. All right. Okay. So I took my opportunity there, got out after 5 years, and was separated. But would have been a great opportunity.
Hey, no, yeah. And no, no disrespect to anybody that's not, because it's not an easy school. It's not a lot of boat spaces to get into it. It's, I had a school trained guy, Alex Tryon, one of my buddies, Alex Tryon, on for an episode.
Okay, yeah.
And it's funny. Nobody wants to talk about NDOC. Nobody wants to give the secrets away. And I love that, because you don't need to pre-flight this. You need to figure this out on your own. You know what I mean? And that's something I've never even went to. I'm like, I can't even go. Just tell me. I won't even tell anybody. I just want to know.
Right.
But it's always fun to talk about, man. And I know that, at least for me personally, when I was operating, man, anytime I had a 240 or a sniper team overwatching me, it just gives you that warm and fuzzy feeling inside of that safety net, so I always appreciated that.
No, awesome, man. Yeah, it's always a team effort. Even people have our backs, we have their backs. It takes a collective bunch. There are no one individuals out there saving the day. It takes everybody communicating, shooting and moving.
Yep.
You know that.
Absolutely. And that goes right back to the importance of team building and team sports when we have younger children. So, all right. So after, I was scanning through your social media. I'm looking at different things that you've done over the past months and checking it out. But I came across the rallypoint.com, the Iron Rally Point, what you were doing with veterans as far as fitness. Can you get into that a little bit?
Absolutely. So it was about 2 years ago, I started ironrallypoint.com. And it basically was free fitness. And because I was so tired of hearing about 3-2, and a lot of people who even moved on from 3-2 commit suicide. When I know you've probably had more than we can even talk about on here.
One's too many. So yeah,
one is enough, and every year it would happen. And even in the law enforcement community, people I heard were, committing suicide. And I go, something's up here. Something's got to be done. And, I at one point was on the verge of at that point. I had a very low point when I got out. And one of my buddies, too, Zach Smith, we were rooming together, And the one thing I really started to do was started to work towards a goal. And I realized this crazy effect it had on me, right? Mm-hmm. So years go by, I start, competing, physique, whatever. And then, it hits me one day because I keep seeing these people at an alarming rate. Just be unhealthy to their bodies, self-medicating and just not figuring it out quite yet, fighting their demons. So I decided, hey, I'm going to try to do my part and, help people out the best way I know how possible, which was through fitness. So, in that 2 year time, and it might not seem like a lot, I had over 500, 600 people that I've, got them into it. Yeah, it was a lot for me single-handedly, just in a regimen, of working out, eating healthy. You don't got to get jacked and lift weights and compete, bodybuilder. That's not what this is about. This is about just being a little bit more healthier, because the better you feel, the better you look, the better you're going to feel. And it kind of takes a little bit of that anxiety off. So I was able to do that and connect with tons of veterans, that way and help. And even if it was saving one person, like you said, that's all I need.
That's a win.
Just one person.
Yep.
I don't care if it's 1 out of 3 years and I'm busting my ass. It's one person. Hell, it's one person.
That's
one
right.
person, one family not affected.
That's right. But let me ask you this: you talk about 500 people. Out of those 500 people, when they started to come around and they started to get their routine down, did they have a noticeable uplift in their mental health?
Absolutely. So I would say about 40%, 30 to 40% dead. Yeah. Because I'll be honest, fitness doesn't cure everything.
No.
It's just one piece of the puzzle,
That's right.
and that's
right.
Yeah, where I could fit in.
No.
And but yeah, so for 30-40% of those people, they were noticing mood changes, a little bit more energy, a little bit more self-renewal and purpose. Their work ethic was a little better. Maybe they were just being better fathers and husbands, whatever it may be. Some wives, came to me with some stuff that was going on. And it overall increased just kind of their life in a very broad spectrum of ways, other than just, yeah.
Absolutely. That's, kudos, man. That's where it's at. And then when you see that and when you feel that, the effects of that bigger than self, motivation, I guess. And it's a blessing. It's a blessing to be, to even be able to help people is a blessing.
Right.
And so, okay. So, and then, let's go back over to now with that. Are you still helping? Are you still running that, or now is it more open?
Right. So remember, it goes back to what you were doing, bridging the gap between, the civilian and kind of the veteran.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed this is a friggin' national epidemic going on with mental health, just not the veteran community. So what I started to do was use what I learned about veterans and what I know and apply it to civilians and say, hey, I'm just not going to do veterans anymore. I'm going to help out civilians as well,
Absolutely.
to get, and I said, and there's this amazing effect that, because we've been through the ringer mentally, who better to teach civilians? And I'm not saying we're better, but we've been through so much.
Yeah. It's a different adversity that we'd faced.
Right.
Yeah.
So we understand a little bit where they're coming from. And when, some be like, hey, listen, we had it pretty tough. And I think we have pretty cool stories to share with them and advice. So I started blending the two together, and I just help as many people as possible as I can now. Just trying to do my part that way.
Hey, man, that's absolutely admirable and commendable. I love it. Are you seeing a lot of people still?
So I have focused. I'm still seeing a lot of people, and it gets overwhelming.
Sure.
But I don't like to divide myself up too much, because I really want to concentrate on quality over quantity.
Sure.
And so if I'm helping someone, I really want to help that person. I just don't want to give them a half-ass effort of 70%. They deserve my full undivided attention towards their health goal, mental goal, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
So, I started to reel back a little bit and say, hey, I'm doing these people a disservice by helping too many at once. So I help as many as I can at that time. Once they're off and flying, I kind of influx some more people.
Check. But you're seeing a constant flow and want for that information, that knowledge, right?
Absolutely. Because, you see it out there. There's so much BS out there about health and fitness.
Oh, dude, there's a lot.
It's confusing, and I don't blame people. I don't.
It can be for sure. Now, let me ask you this. Let's dive into this a little bit. I agree that I agree with what you say, that it's not just a military service problem with mental health. And I think statistically 80% of us at some point are going to have a mental health crisis, like according to the numbers, that's going to happen. So knowing that 80% of people are going to go through something tragic that causes mental health crisis, two things. One, we should be a whole lot nicer to our fellow person than what we see, both on social media and in person. Understand that people are going through it. And I got this one fly in my studio and I can't get him off my speaker. Anyway, just knowing that that's going on, it sucks. But I try to draw back and say, okay, people that don't have PTSD, people that don't have, traumatic brain injuries and horrible childhoods, why are they running into these, these at young ages, seemingly like that people even our age are depressed a lot, like by and large. And talking to multiple different people, but it seems like to me that one of the most common answers that comes up is that people are no longer, they're not chasing their dreams, right? People are in jobs that they don't like, doing something that they're not passionate about, and something that they do not look forward to when they get up in the morning. And that will cause depression 100%. If you're stuck in that system, or you feel like you're under the illusion that you are stuck in that system, then that can be very desperate. You feel like you're never going to get, out. And do you think that plays in a lot in the greater population of the United States?
Absolutely. People are miserable working jobs, buying food. They're working these long hours to buy this food that's going to make them unhealthy in the first place. And they're just depressed. It's this vicious cycle. I think people really have the stigma now of, I've been at this job, and people really are afraid to take chances. They're afraid to actually take a chance on themselves. What I've come to find out is that people think that they don't deserve better a lot of the time. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You deserve better. They're like, well, I should just be here. This is where I'm at. I don't deserve to be over there yet because X, Y, whatever, A, B, C, and D. And they tend to let all these, external things around them control their lives, which they have no control over. And I think that the two things that people really need to take away to better themselves in their situation is like, hey, you deserve to be happy. Like, don't think you don't deserve it. You deserve that. I don't know why people think that. Ryan, if you figure it out, let me know, because that's huge. Why people think they don't deserve something. And B,
I got
people
no answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still trying to work on that one.
I think everybody deserves everything that they ever are willing to work and go get. If you're willing to get it, then you deserve it. But so maybe in that statement, if you're not willing to work for it, then you don't deserve it.
Yeah, I think maybe they're afraid of how great they actually can be, and they're afraid of what that work entails.
And I think a lot of times people are afraid of, what if I'm good at it and it succeeds? What does that mean? Does that mean I move? Does that mean, what does that mean? Right. You know what I mean? And it's like, you get one time, you get one chance.
I know.
You got to go now.
Yeah. We are, we're so locked in life of just like, hey, A plus B equals C. That's just how we work. We love patterns as humans. This happens, so this happens. So we're afraid to take chances. When A plus B, we have no clue what it's going to equal. We get scared, but we know it's going to equal something good.
Oh yeah. And I think inevitably when people do, one of my mentors says, don't be afraid to leave the shore. When you're not afraid to leave the shore and go out into the vast blue on your chance and bet on yourself, at least one thing I guarantee you is going to happen. You're going to find yourself. You're going to find yourself somewhere. I don't know where that's going to be. Maybe you're going to find yourself as a CEO of a Fortune 100 company. Maybe you're going to start your own entrepreneurship, that day. Maybe you're going to end up finding yourself in the middle of the biggest dream you ever had. But you will find some things out about yourself when you leave the shore. And 80 to 90% of the people that I talk to, when they take that chance, something great happens. You got to be willing to, like you said before, you have to be willing to bet on yourself. You got to condition yourself to be willing to bet on yourself. You need to get right mentally. You need to get right with your health. You need to get right with the way you eat and with your workout regimen. And then you need to bet on yourself and go full steam ahead.
Absolutely. I absolutely. And it's just, it's people are so negative, negative. I mean, I'm a big believer in actually, bringing stuff into your life, just being positive about things, even if you don't fully believe that shit is going to happen. Like, I'm going to win $1 million. But if man, I'm putting in the work, I'm being positive about it. Yeah, you might not make $1 million. You might end up with 200,000 or 100,000 for all that good work. That is still something positive.
And you're going to end up happier. I can guarantee you that. The last thing you want to do is look back on your life and think about what could have been. Like what if when I heard that podcast, I made an action plan that day.
Yeah.
And launched my life in a different direction. You don't want to think that 30 years from now. You don't. You get one chance. You're not coming back around for a second time. You got to make your action plans and go. I see a lot of people kind of gravitate towards coaching. What's your thought on that?
Coaching for
like life coaches and
life
these
coaches?
Deep wealth coaches. You think that's just more for motivation and like, or do you think people are reaching out just like a coach for working out and they need that disciplined person in their ear telling them, hey, we got this, as a reinforcement?
Right. Yeah, I think that, man, that's a tough question, Ryan. It's a tough one. I think that there are a lot of motivational coaches out there that are just that, motivation. because we know there's a huge difference between motivation and discipline.
100%.
Motivation isn't going to be there all the friggin' time. Motivation is just a feeling. That's all it really is.
Yep.
Discipline is really what we want to bring out in people. Motivation
100%.
helps times, you know what I mean? But discipline really is that skill set we're looking towards. But why people are going towards coaching? I'll be 100% honest here. And I'm not going to name any names because I don't do that. It's not the person I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen coaches out there that aren't very good at what they do, and they just motivate. It's pretty easy to motivate and say, "Oh, you're doing a great job," and be a cheerleader. But it's also, if you really want to be a good coach and a great coach, it's having those tough talks with people.
Yep. Being real.
And saying, "Hey, you got to get your ass in gear. Let's find out why you're failing.
Yep.
Tell me what's going on."
Yep, absolutely. No, and I think that those do exist as well. I think there are good coaches out there.
Absolutely.
But like, it seems like every time I open an Instagram or a Twitter or, a social media, that it's inundated with coach. And I hope that they're all doing well and getting their people where they want to go. It's something I see all the time. So I wanted to ask about it because I didn't actually understand it.
I think too that they recognize that the market really is saturated with maybe a little mental, like anxiety and all these mental things going on with people, and they're kind of taking advantage of it. I think.
Yeah.
So
because it's a lot of them right now, and it's like some of them are probably real and doing great things. Some of them are probably opportunistic. The entrepreneurs saying, "Hey, this is a trend. We can get in this right now and double up or whatever," and then jump into it.
Right.
Odd.
Yeah.
So talk to me about being a police officer.
So being in law enforcement definitely is interesting. When I was in Florida, I was down there. Pretty much, I was street beat down there, working patrol. Mm-hmm. Came up to Michigan. Now more my role is investigations for tobacco crimes.
Okay.
I'd love to get in on the drug side and hopefully the weapons side federally someday.
Like ATF?
Yeah.
That what you're looking towards?
Yeah, looking to go federal. If that opportunity arises.
Well, I think that there's like a pandemic of fentanyl coming across our border right now. They're probably looking for all the people they can get. And if they're not, that would be sneakily suspicious to me.
Yeah. So. I was actually talking to one of our, an agent yesterday because we had to go through a certain warehouse. I can't really make it public, but we had to go through a warehouse, do some investigations there. And they're always hiring and they're always in the need for bodies. So it's out there.
Yeah, man.
But I mean, to answer your question, as far as being, a cop or being in law enforcement, it's, man, it's really taken a turn, hasn't it?
It's that's why I asked. My little brother is a police officer up in Ohio, and it's uncomfortable for me to have a little brother being a police officer sometimes,
I bet.
So it's I wanted to know what the dynamic was for you. I mean, you were in Florida, so and I don't know what crime's like in Florida, but it seems like maybe it's not always on the news, so maybe it's not always,
Yeah, it's a lot of domestic violence. A lot of drunks, assaults, nothing too crazy, but really the most dangerous thing, like your brother was saying, is anytime you have to stop somebody in a car. Those are the most dangerous stops ever.
Now, see, he hasn't done that yet. Thank God. Like, I'm so happy, but he's gone through all the courses, all the everything in Ohio. I want to say you have to do like a certain number of years in the jail. And so he's been in the jail for a while now. I think he can come out, but he deals mainly with the inmates once they're in and things like that. But he wants to be out on the street, and I'm like, and that's what makes me nervous. Like, man, stay in there, don't go out there.
Man, I got a really good friend who's in corrections, and I would not swap with him any day of the week.
No, it's just as bad.
Can't be armed. I'm like, forget that, man. That's
okay. So maybe I want him back out on the streets. I don't know. It just doesn't make me feel good, man. And like the way I feel like our law enforcement right now, as needed and as absolute imperative as they are in every small and big city around the nation, I feel like they have a bad rap right now. I feel like they get strung up the flagpole for almost anything that the media can get their hands on. Doesn't really matter as long as they can hate on some cops and hate on some law enforcement. One thing I would note is, Jocko Willink's on his podcast a lot of times talks about how he thinks law enforcement should be training 20% of their work week. And everybody says, oh, well, that's impossible. But it's like, hang on a second. So you do one annual training shoot if you're an on-the-beat cop in most places. Outside of that, if you're not going on your own time and shooting your sidearm, you're not getting anything. You're definitely not getting any kind of up-tempo VO2 max, get them winded, and then take somebody and try to de-escalate a situation so you don't have to kill somebody. If you're not doing that all the time, then how could we expect them to make these bang I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm saying that when you look at us and you say, "Oh, well, that's just impossible." It's like, no, that's not okay. This is what needs to happen, and you need to figure out how many more people you need to hire. So how many more millions of dollars can we fund you to make this happen? Because that is the answer. And that's not me. That's Jocko. But I completely endorse that. Completely support it.
I 100% agree with what you're saying. And I think that there's an even epidemic in law enforcement for being friggin' out of shape and not being, I see it all the time. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to name states.
Well, you could just say every state and every PD ever right now.
Yeah.
Everyone that's open right now, because there's not a place that I go where I don't see cops where I'm like, I could outrun you.
Yeah.
I could outrun you. You're going to have to shoot me.
Yeah. You think bad guys don't do that, man? Yeah. I mean, that's, it just freaking is crazy.
and then like, what do their partners think? Like, because if you're my partner, I don't care what world we're in, civilian world, military world. If you're my partner and I think that you're starting to get to a point where maybe you couldn't aid me at your best possible ability, I'm like, hey, dude, what's going on? Like, you need to talk? Is there something going? Like, you're getting fat, or you're getting slow, or whatever the case may be, or you're not showing up on time, or maybe you're drinking too much, you stink like booze, or whatever. But there should be some accountability going all different directions, and it seems like every PD has this issue.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, a little bit of that PC world is creeping in to our departments to where we can't vocally speak out, and there can be some solid leadership in there.
Would there be repercussion if you were to tell your partner he was fat and he needed to hit the gym so he could better support the law enforcement effort?
I don't know. I haven't tried it because I've never had partners that.
Okay, Roger. I'm just saying, have we gotten to that point where we can't even tell our partners, like, hey, dude, let's go?
I think so, honestly.
Oh, okay.
I really, really do think that's the thing. And I'm at the point now where I say, you know what? This is what we need to do. Up police salaries significantly and just take the best of the best. Fine. You don't want to train? That's cool. We'll get the best of the best out there. And it's going to be a privilege now to be an officer because we're going to pay you to do a great job, Money is always a great incentive.
No, money's a great incentive. Here's the thing I fear with first responders, police officers, teachers, and military. If you put too high of a ticket on it, you're going to be bringing people that are not that archetype in to try to pretend that they're that archetype so that they can get a paycheck. If you're not a protector and then you get in a gunfight, there's a great chance that you're not going to do anything.
Right.
That's what bothers me.
Right. And hopefully the vetting process goes well. I'm kind of banking on the vetting process,
Yeah.
But
they need to be paid more, 100%, dude. And maybe that's it. Maybe you make it a privilege and then you hold them to that. Yeah, you're going to get paid, but you must do all of this annually. You must do all of this weekly, bi-weekly, whatever it is, and we set that training standard up. Here's another thing. Like I know we can't, or we don't do this in the civilian world and the police departments, stuff like that. But in the Marine Corps, when there's an incident, like I was to murder a bunch of people or murder one person in country, it's not just me that goes down. My entire chain of command goes down, probably all the way up to the battalion commander who's got 20 years in as an officer and is looking at a sure, 6 digits with a comma involved retirement, no problem going on to a board seat. That's what he's looking at, and he's going to go down when I do that. Now, if we had police chiefs every single time they had cops that were ruled that they were brutal or guilty of bad shootings, you bet your ass they'd start self-policing a lot of that stuff if their pensions was on the line. But they're not.
Absolutely.
Right. So,
Absolutely.
and then you got to figure like the police union's probably like one of the oldest unions in the country. And
yeah.
so, and you know, and then it's this protection game, you know, and so it's like, you know, I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that training 20% of your work week in these hostile or these high combative stop-like procedures will get them used to that muscle memory and that calm sense to make the right calculated decisions, because it's just like anything else. Like if you're going to ground fight or you're in the Marine Corps, you're going to go ground fight. Yeah, you're going to lose a lot. You're going to get choked out a lot, but you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn how to breathe better, how to move slower, how to be methodical with your actions. It's the same thing with anything. Enough repetition and you can really hone in on what that is. So if, let's say, for that, you know, that one Saturday a month that you have to work 8 hours in training, you did, you know, 37 hostile takedowns of somebody coming out hostile out of a traffic stop to you, then my guess is, not my guess, it's 100% certified that your next traffic stop where something goes bad, you're going to be 35 times better than you were before you did that training. And now if we do that training every week, that's going to drastically lower the negative incidents that are uncalled for, in my opinion. And Jocko's, like I said, all hats off to him, but I completely endorse and completely agree that would help. So, anyway,
yeah,
wanted to get
I
your
know,
opinion.
and it's tough because I think us as military leaders and veterans see how the training should be going, but as soon as you mention military and something that's a civilian job, people tend to shy away from it. But I 100% agree with you and Jocko. I think it really would do some well. I think it would really, yeah.
And like, yeah, I guess we beat that dead horse. But, dude, my hat's off. I love the law enforcement. I love the protection. I love that I can be, you know, at my house and not worry that somebody's coming and know that if something happens that, you know, help is on the way. I love that. So,
yeah.
And I appreciate that from you, and I appreciate that service from you. Let's talk more about your time supporting 3-2 in Afghanistan, like 10-12 area.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
like, let's just get into SIG events from there, because I was never up in that area. You know, I was down in Marja and then like Treknawa area, and you guys were a little bit away from that, right?
Yeah, we were up in Nowzad, mostly hanging
correct.
out around Nowzad in that area. I mean, we might had, you know, whatever, 20, 30 clicks, northeast, southwest, depending on what we had that day.
Yeah,
you know, we were always in that area. Yeah, it was, you know, it was very different because it was my first combat deployment. You know, I felt like, you know, how you trained all your time and you were just pissed off, man, because it's like, man, I'm a killer. I kill. This is what they trained me to do, to kill the enemy effectively and efficiently. So, you know, we finally, last deployment, first combat deployment, I really didn't know what to expect, to tell you the truth.
Nobody does, I don't think.
No, you find yourself, like you said.
Yeah.
But, you know, what was really significant, I mean, what was really crazy over there, and you got to respect your enemy. A lot of people didn't respect their enemy. These guys train in altitudes. They're skinny. I mean, they're war fighters too. I mean, they've been doing it for years and years and years. Now, you're an educated guy. You know all about the history and what
since birth. Their cities are made for war still. So
absolutely, yeah. There's no one going to overtake that place. We did a hell of a job screwing them up, though. You know, pushed them back.
We arranged some meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it was a big eye opener for me. We ran into a lot of IEDs, you know, a lot more IEDs. I mean, yeah, you get into your good gunfight every now and again with some, you know, with some bad guys, bad actors over there. But we were losing guys, you know, limbs, IEDs all the time. Yeah. You know, I think that was really their main purpose, was just defeat us like that. I mean, they were pretty brutal. I think they mostly wanted to wound, not kill, and then kill you. They really wanted to. You know, they got.
Well, I mean, if you think about, that's what I mean. You're a sniper, age old. Wound the guy, wait till his team comes out with the litter, and then you piling up a team, and then a squad has to remove a team, and eventually they stop coming. But if you're thinking like you turn the map around, I'm going to blow him up right here. I'm going to, you know, put secondaries all the way around it. That way, when the help comes, we know help's going to come, and you know, we gotta do our best as a warfighting element to try to not make patterns and not set, you know,
Right.
TTPs that they can track. But sometimes it just is what it is. So
Right.
I know when I was in Marja, they used ammonium nitrate and aluminum, and they called it anal, and that stuff was, I mean, just ripping trucks to pieces and limbs, as you mentioned. Yeah, brutal. So you guys in Nowzad were more concerned about, if you were to put a 1 and a 2, it would be 1 IEDs, 2 gunfight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially after we took our first casualty, Mark. You know, that was really tough for us in 3-2, because to have, you know, an operator like that, and he, you know, just step on an IED at night. To take one of the great guys out who's overwatching you all the time kind of sent I felt like they sent a message over there. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were noticing patterns. They were developing intel daily on us. I mean, you can tell.
And was anybody else hurt in that IED?
Physically, no. Mentally, yeah.
Well, no, yeah, but physically he was one. Okay.
Yeah. So he eventually succumbed to his wounds. I mean, he was gone from the waist down. You know, they did his best. I think they flew him out to Germany, I believe, and then had his family come out, and then he passed out there. Mark Bradley. And then, you know, as sad as it is, man, it has effects on families. His brother, Steve, you fast forward to probably 2 years ago, died of drug overdose. So, you know, that's the ever one, it's the
ripple effect of war.
Yeah, it impacts, exactly. But yeah, and then we had another guy, you know, he's just sweeping a compound, pressure plate took his leg, Kevin Hannerhan. Steve Tillman, same thing happened. I know we engaged in numerous firefights when we were guarding one base we were actually building, and Peter Clore, he was actually our dog handler.
Okay.
And, you know, we tried to set up an ambush over there by sending, you know, some of the 03, you know, 11s out. We're just going to march them right down the middle, see them pop up, take them out from there, see if we could do something like that. Because they were shelling us all day and night. We really couldn't get a fix on them. Come to find out, they're putting ice cubes in their mortar tubes and just leaving them, letting them melt. You know how that goes.
Yeah, no, genius though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I heard those TTPs come down after we came home. I don't know that we ever faced it, but I heard them. Putting ice in the tubes and the mortar round on top. So as soon as it's hitting, genius.
Yeah, it is genius. I mean,
well, I mean, in Iraq, I think 07, I was in Iraq, and they would take 107 millimeter Chinese rockets and set them on PVC pipe ramps in the open desert with like a sandbag or two, and just Kentucky windage it. And they would use old school bell alarm clocks, 12-hour alarm clocks, and they set it for 12 hours. And as soon as that bell rang, the rocket would take off. So our counter battery would go out there. There's nothing there. You know what I mean? Genius.
Yeah. They
maybe not genius. Like a lot of them had to die to learn what counter battery was and how quickly we could get rounds back on them. But once they learned, and you know, they're resourceful people.
Yeah, I wonder how many of them it took to actually get that right.
I don't know. You can imagine they just started with 12 hours. Like, dude, we're not even going to try 3 hours. It's just 12's good.
Right.
Dude, I had to do a counter battery mission in Kop Rawa in Iraq, and it was like maybe the sketchiest mission ever, because Recon had put like a stone out there that was a camera, and it was watching a cave entrance. Well, then we took Chinese 107s from that direction, so they sent me and my squad out there to go retrieve the camera for them and check the cave. And I'm like, oh, that's great. You know, that's because they said the camera's batteries died or something.
Right.
Like, so I get there, and the cave entrance is like the size of my monitor. It's like, 38 inches, and it's just like an oval hole like this. Very sketchy. And I'm like, oh man, so we retrieve the rock and everything, and I go crawling into this hole, like with my M4. I had to strip my gear off to get through it. And I get in there, and there's like goats living in there. They have a pen in there. There's like tea cooking, like somebody had just left. There was multiple like little cots lined up, and it's just a hole that I crawled into in the ground. It was insane. They had like a bathroom area in there, so it smelled horrible. But they were living in the ground in this hollowed out hole. I couldn't believe it. Nobody was there. I didn't find anybody. But definitely crawling through that opening that wasn't the funnest thing to do.
No, it reminds me of Platoon a little bit. It's like a Nam situation.
Just like came through with my gun, like, oh my God,
right.
please nobody be in here. I wanted to frag it. They wouldn't let me. I'm like, let's just frag this.
Man.
Let's just frag it and be done. It'll bury him.
Call it a day.
No, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So what kind of so I know you got in firefights, but you're saying that the main threat in Nowzat is going to be, we're going to label that as IEDs, especially after some of your guys start getting knocked down and taken out. Were you ever in significant gunfights where you're moving on them?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one too where we were actually getting we were getting shelled the shit out of. We were watching, I believe it. Oh, man, if I can remember the base's name, wasn't Rogers. It was another. Outpost we were setting up, overwatching, and once they just started shelling us, they started moving in on their little Hondas or whatever the hell they have over there now, their little trucks, and then we were taking shell gunfire for about, I'd probably say, an hour. And that, for anybody, that's a long time.
Is that were they throwing 82s at you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they even had some Dishkas out there. I mean, it was they were ready to. They did not want us moving in. Neighbors don't want you as neighbors.
They weren't happy.
Yeah, they were not happy at all. And that was especially, we found out later on with some intel, is that they actually had an arms cache not too far from there, a click. So, I think we kind of got a little lucky building it there. We didn't know what real estate we were building on, but we kind of knew. That really was the biggest one that happened. During that time, we had several of our scout snipers actually get hit. We had Hanley, he got hit in the thigh. Probst, he got hit in the thigh too. So we had to call a birdie and get them out of there. Run up a 9 line.
Yeah. Now, did you guys made movement on these people?
No, we actually stayed put.
So you were stagnant, just fighting it out with them.
Oh yeah, we were stagnant at that point. We wanted to head out that way, but we couldn't figure out exactly where the main direction of fire was coming in, and then just leave us, flanked or rear our ass.
Now, did you guys bring IDF in, like indirect fires or air or?
Yeah, absolutely. So that took a while. That actually took till the evening to get online with that, but eventually, we called out some grids and we took care of that. Yeah,
outstanding. That Dishka is something else, man. When it starts rocking, it doesn't matter where you're at. You can tell it's not your own because it sounds different, and it's still big. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's still huge. It's it'll scare you, man. Especially if you've never heard one before. My first turn, what the hell is that?
Yeah, dude.
I'm like, all right.
That's the same with that little minigun, that little 30 cal that they have on like the gunships on the Cobras and stuff. If you've never heard that gal go off, it can paralyze you. Just the first time, bah, they see that thing go. Ooh. Yeah, it's one of those. Dishka was that way too. Now, did you guys face any recoilless rifles or the? I talked to leaders, Jeremy, mutual friend, and he talked about they had the little thumper, the little handheld 40 mics, and they were like the enemy had them, and I'm like, what? Yeah, they didn't have the if they had them in Marja, I didn't see them. I didn't notice.
Periodically they would just walk around and just pop them off,
and popping them off from the city towards you guys.
Yeah, apparently just to get our reaction and see how we operated.
Mm-hmm. Like just probing to see what your steps are going to be.
Touches. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we had to know when not to react and react. Like, let's just sit tight on this. I don't want to. We don't want to.
Yeah, for sure. I know that. Like after the first maybe 5 or 6 days of the invasion, they understood that when smoke was on the ground, they had hurt somebody, right? Because a chopper would come pick somebody up. So as soon as they'd see smoke, they'd intensify their fire and try to shoot birds down. And so it's like, okay, we're gonna have to change our marking and our methods here before too long. And then we got ICOM chatter. I'm sure you guys got some ICOM chatter over there, and you would hear what they were doing, counting your guys out and counting your guys back in and stuff like that. It's kind of crazy.
Oh yeah. It was. Thank God for ICOM too. We were in a compound once where we thought, oh man, no one's gonna find us here. Nope. ICOM, you got 30 inbound.
Oh my God.
all up for Cat, get us out of here. We just got out of there just the nick of time, man. They
The trucks just came, yoked you up.
Yep, yoked us up. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
dude,
God.
well, it's always comforting when the cavalry's come in with 240s and marks on top of their,
Yeah.
and 50s on top of their roof. It's like, okay, we're just hunker in, boys. They'll take care of it.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
be
and
okay.
I mean, exactly. I said, just sit tight, man. Let the heavy guns do all the lifting here. I mean, because it's hard to actually be concealed out there. It's their backyard.
Dude, it is. They know everything
You're trying
about
to
that
walk
area.
around at night. They know where you're at. By 5 hours goes by. Trust me, you're compromised. You're compromised.
Yeah, dude. Especially if you're at that time, because at that time you had some really good fighters, like hardened fighters, and then we even had all through that area at that same timeline we had mercenaries coming in from Chechnya and Iran and Pakistan and all these different people coming in. And the only reason I know that is because I've seen it with my own eyes. A couple of the people we killed behind Mars had foreign fighter cards. Like on the back was Pashtun Wali, and on the front would be either Pakistani or Iranian or Czech or whatever. So this guy would give a handler this card. The guy would turn it around, read it, understand where he's supposed to put him in at, and then usher him to that place. Either he's an IED guy or he's a sniper, he's a whatever. And that was the one time in my career where I got to see intelligence come back. Like it went up and came back like, hey, this is what we figured out. And that was pretty cool. Pretty cool about that. So.
Yeah,
But at that time, those people wanted to fight. Like a lot of them were warriors. They just wanted to get after it. So.
Yeah, guns for hire. Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So, gosh, what do we've been going here for about an hour. So what, if you could give advice to, and I don't even want to put it service member, specific, advice to people who find themselves stuck in that rut that we were speaking to a little bit earlier. If you could take a couple minutes and address them directly and say, give them your little 2 cents on how to get an action plan together.
Man, that's tough. If I had to give advice to someone who's really in that rut, I would say get a goal. I want you to pick any goal out. It could be any goal. It could be start small. You do not have to start with these huge goals, whether it's your career or whatever. You don't have to aim for freaking CEO. You could aim for the next position up, or maybe a $3,000 pay, whatever it may be. And the one thing I would say, when you're in that rut, we tend to look at the huge mountain. We tend to look at the top where we should be rather than that first step that we need to take. And if we keep looking at the top while we're taking all these steps forward, that top really doesn't get any closer to us during those first couple steps. So really, really look at, if you're going to break down what you want to do to get out of that rut, is one day at a time, small steps. Even if it's a day, like, listen, my goal today is to wake up at 6 a.m. That could be freaking it, man. That is it. That is your main goal. Make it your goal. Just small little actionable steps every time. That would be number one. And don't look at the huge goal, because I think people just get so overwhelmed.
Yep.
Just with this huge thing of life and where we're supposed to be, and we should be here by now, and what am I doing? And they look at like, I should have a home right now because I'm 35 years old and so does. Don't worry about that. You're doing the best you can do right now. Take the small steps. Just worry about that one step. Second thing I would say is find someone to hold you accountable. Someone who actually cares. Or reach out for help. One of the two. Sit down and talk to somebody and have that person hold you accountable. Check in on you. Because you can't do it by yourself. I certainly didn't do it by myself. It's very tough to go through that alone. And I think you need to have someone by your side, or at least checking in on you, helping you out, and holding you accountable to what you say you're going to do. So I guess overall what I'm trying to say is don't look at the big picture. I know that seems kind of counterproductive. Think a little bit smaller. One day at a time, just small little wins. And these small little wins, I swear to God, man, they'll make you feel so good.
Absolutely. Have you read the book Atomic Habits by James Cleary?
I have not.
You're
I
like
have not. I've heard
speaking
of
it.
though.
You're like speaking it. That's like a lot of the premises. Setting up small, either roadblocks or freeways to good or bad habits, and like taking small bites. Something I tell my kids, mainly like they don't have an overwhelming life, but when they have to clean their room and they're going to get in trouble if it's not clean, that seems overwhelming to them. And they're still young, so we'll let it be. But I always tell them, look, man, like how do you eat an elephant? If you looked at the whole elephant and you had a fork in your hand and you're looking at how much you got to eat this whole time, it's like, oh, it's never going to go away. But if you focus on one bite at a time, and so I say, you got your trash bite, you got your laundry bite, you got your toy bite. Focus on one bite at a time, and you can get through anything. But you got to start at a bite at a time. You have to make your action plan, and it has to be something realistic and absolutely achievable.
Yes.
It can't be what's your goal? Be an astronaut. Cool. There's a lot of steps that we got to identify and then work between here and being an astronaut. So yeah, being an astronaut, that's overwhelming, but when it starts with get good grades, eat healthy, get some fitness, got to stay in shape, get good grades in college, stay healthy, stay in shape, apply to NASA. Like when you break it down, you can get there.
Oh yeah.
Just don't look at the elephant while you're taking the first bite. So I feel you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are our own worst enemies when it comes to that. We get in our own heads. We get in our own ways. It's nobody. A lot of the times it's no one's fault but our own. And I understand there's special situations out there with people who are probably not in the best economic situations or maybe health already, and they really can't do that yet. But even from that standpoint, you still can take small steps to get out of that.
100%. I mean, you could get up every day and like make your bed.
Yeah,
they say make your bed. Be nice. Be nice to your fellow human being. Raise your kids to the best of your ability. Challenge yourself to learn at least one new thing every day.
Right. Absolutely.
I'm a big preacher of wanting people to read. You can gain so much knowledge by reading of experiences that you've not yet had the opportunity to experience. So I like that too. Shawn, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you joining me. I think the talk was great. And I look forward to more in the future if that's something that we can put together for sure. If you guys aren't following Shawn Waterman, you need to be following Shawn Waterman. If it's just for daily dose of discipline and motivation, if it's just for a daily dose of somebody who is a good human being that's trying to bring light to a darkened place or a somewhat dampened place right now, somebody that anytime I go to his social media, I walk away either thinking or smiling. So that's somebody you need to hit that follow button on. I'll make sure I tag you in all the releases, Shawn, and then I'll also have all of your information where people can find you in the link in description, and so we can get more of the goodness going around.
Absolutely, man, and I'm gonna blast out this platform right here. Your podcast. People need more of this. I think they really.
I appreciate all of that, Shawn, and I appreciate the talk today. Let's do it again in the future, man.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Ryan.
Well, that concludes this episode. Thanks for listening to Choices Not Chances podcast. Please share, like, and subscribe wherever you listen or watch our podcast. You can also follow us on social media at Choices Not Chances podcast. Thanks, and have a great day.
Louisiana Gun Shop, your firearm headquarters, specializing in concealed carry guns, ammo, and training. You can get your Louisiana permit with us. Also a large selection of AR-15s, or if you are that build-it-yourself type of guy or gal, we have all the parts to build and customize your own AR-15. Glock, SIG, Taurus, Ruger. We have all the brands, both in the store or at LouisianaGunShop.com.
Not too far. You're marking a building. Hit him. Yeah, that's good.
That's a good shot. That's money. Yeah.